While the fees debate swirls, the Federal Education Minister, Christopher Pyne, has endorsed a proposal to collect unpaid HECS debts from deceased estates.
To tell us more, we're joined by the architect of this idea, the Grattan Institute's Higher Education Program Director, Andrew Norton. Andrew Norton, good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you say can be achieved by collecting these debts?
Well, at the moment we expect that about 17% of all new lending won't be repaid, and for last year that was more than $1 billion. So the question is this a good expenditure of public money? My answer is that it's not. We think it mostly goes to the adult children of deceased help debtors when they die in old age. So we've suggested collecting this from the estate.
So won't it be collected? Why? Because of death only?
But the reason is that in the legislation that's set up, HECS and then HELP, it writes off the debt if someone dies.
But do we know how many recipients of HECS have died?
Only about 10,000 who died without repaying, so it's a small number. But the way the accounting system works, the government has to estimate each year how much it expects it won't get back, and that's included as a cost in the budget.
So it's simply a case of changing that legislation, you would argue?
That's right, yes.
And the saving that you get, though, from, let's stay with the 10,000 that we know have died before repaying that debt, what does that get you?
So the ones who've already died, there's obviously no saving.
No, but just to work with that figure, because this is a projection.
This is a projection.
And this is a projection that doesn't have a whole lot of basis at the moment, given that we don't know about longevity, we don't know the nature of the students, we can't, name them and find out the state of health and the like. So working with 10,000, what does that get you?
That would not get us a lot, because
give me a ballpark.
This would only probably hundreds of millions rather than billions. And that's because most of these people would have borrowed not very much. Because when HECS started, it was only about $1,800 a year.
That's right. And
therefore, the total amount people were left with wasn't very much.
So I see. I'm just doing a simple sort of, multiplication of that. The 10,000 versus, just a general fee of say $1,800 or $2,000.
So this is
somebody worth collecting.
For decades, this would just be a big accounting advantage showing in the government's budget, and there wouldn't be huge amounts of cash coming in. That's because this scheme only started in 1989. Yep. Most of the people who have taken a debt are only in their 40s now, so the number of deaths is going to be quite small for decades. But over time, this will have a big impact on the budget in terms of cash and in the short term on accrual accounting.
How would it work in practice, getting that money if the legislation was changed from deceased estates?
Well, the report we did at Grattan actually suggested making this prospective, so anyone who borrows in future would face this new arrangement. There's an argument that people signed up to this, perhaps believing it would be written off, and took out the debt on that basis, and maybe you should stick to the original terms of that transaction. But for all future people, you would have to understand that you would have to repay. But
if HECS ends very soon, with a new system that comes in with just simply paying for your education by the university setting their own fees, then is this just a moot point?
No, because that's the big issue with the new system is that people can borrow much, much larger sums of money than they do now. So
you're talking about this applying to whatever is borrowed in the future, whether it's called HECS or anything else?
That's yes. So.
Okay. And that, of course, is anticipated if the fees go up substantially, and some say they will, to be in the tens of thousands that people might end up owing.
Well, typically now people borrow between 18 and 30,000, and I would imagine in a new system, probably between 30 and 60,000 most people will borrow. So that's a sizable sum when you've got millions of people going to university.
You talk about certainty. What's your general take about how these proposed reforms have been rolled out, Andrew, with current students, those about to come in the mid-year intake in many universities, potentially up for the new fee regime, and lots of universities, as you will well know, distinctly unhappy about that?
It's caused a lot of confusion, and 2 or 3 universities have already said, we guarantee your fees for 2016 will be the same as what you're paying now.
At their cost, at the university's cost?
At the university's cost, because people have to know what they're signing up for.
And does the Grattan Institute have a view on, just generally speaking, on how good it will be for education in Australia on deregulating university fees?
I think it'll be good because it'll allow different types of education that are hard to get in Australia. But it really means people are going to have to shop around and think more carefully about what they actually want to get for their education.